It sounds so mystical, but the reality is everyone thinks thoughts and everyone says stuff to themselves. If you've ever thought to yourself, oh God, like, why did I do that? Why did I say that? You're talking to yourself. Like, who's talking and who's listening when you're arguing with yourself? I know I should get off the couch, but I don't want to. You do that, and it's in the language. The number one question that I get asked as a therapist, and it's the same question from everyone. Why does part of me know what to do? Drink the water, phone a friend, find a hobby. We know what to do. Part of me knows, and other parts of me are doing the opposite. It's baked into our language. Parts work is simply taking this thing that we all do every day anyway, and creating a framework and tools and structure and language around it so we know what we're talking about. Parts work, most simply defined, is the idea that your mind, just like your body, is made of lots of different parts, all of which do a different job.
Welcome to the show. I'm Jay Scherr, host of Business Minds Coffee Chat, where you get a captivating look inside the minds of game changers, risk takers, and visionaries who turn ideas into breakthroughs that shake up the world. Our mission is to give you fresh ways to think that spark growth in your business and life so you can make a mark that lasts.
I thought a good starting point would be I'd love it for you to give a little bit of context. We spent a bit more time talking about your backstory on the first episode, but when people look at you today and they're reading your books and they see you on social and they understand more about who you are and what you do, sometimes we can forget about the hot messes that we've been through and the ups and downs and all the stuff that has led us to where we are today. So can you give us maybe a bit of a snapshot of some of your backstory, some of the bigger challenges that you faced that really led you to the work that you're doing today?
Yeah, this is why hearing my bio read, whether I'm at a keynote conference or what you just read, kind of cracks me up. It's all true. Everything you read is in fact accurate. But if it was an honest, thorough bio, it would talk about the 3 a.m. nights where I couldn't sleep, or the many nights where I felt like I was going to die because I was doing drugs or whatever. But I think we all have this very polished, forward-facing resume list of accomplishments. But behind the scenes, we're all human. And I know that because I've clocked more than 11,000 hours as a therapist. And so what I really think is important for people to know about me is I'm fully human. I have all the parts, the good, the bad, the ugly, the generous parts, the selfish parts, the, shallow parts, the deep parts. We all come with a full set of characters installed. And if I have to lead by showing some of my hand in order to help other people feel safe enough going, oh yeah, I have that too, so be it.
Beautiful. So tell me a bit about how you have changed and some lessons that you've learned about yourself from the time that The Science of Stuck came out to today, and your latest book obviously being Align Your Mind. But what I'd really like to hear is about you personally. How have you changed and evolved, and what have you learned more about you?
Oh, that's a great question. And it's kind of cliche, and I knew this intellectually, cognitively, but it's true. It's whenever you have the thought to yourself, well, once I do this thing, then I'll feel done. Or once I write the book, then I'll feel accomplished. Once I get the promotion, then I'll feel like I've made it. So I knew this, but it's a real visceral knowing that there's no level of life you hit without the imposter parts, the critical parts, and all of they're going to find out I'm a fraud parts showing up alongside with you. It's just, hey, we're on a new level now. I used to be so obsessed with first it was getting the book deal. Like, how do you get a book deal? And it was years of grinding and being told no. And then I got the book deal. Then it's, oh no, I have to write a book. I get to write a book. And then it's writing the book. And then it's, guess what? Now you're the PR and the marketing and all of the other departments too. And then learning how to sell a book and how to promote a book. And there's no done. There's no level of done that you get to. And I thought maybe if I write another book, I'll feel done. So I did. And Align Your Mind is the third. And I get it. There's no level of doneness. I'm just going to take a pause from writing books. It's fun, but Message received. We never arrive anywhere.
That is so interesting. So, with that said, if I were to ask you to rate yourself on a scale of, let's say, 0 to 100, with 100 being fully realized potential and 0 being none, right? I have nothing. Where would you put yourself today?
Oh, that's a really meaty question. Because then it's like, well, which personalities are you talking about? Because
Ooh.
there's so many life paths that I could choose. It actually makes me kind of sad. There's so many things in the world I'll never know. I get really sad in libraries because you look at all of this body of knowledge that is probably really interesting that I will never have the time to know anything about, and cities I'll never be able to visit and really dive into. And so I think the answer is both 0 and 100. If I died today, it will have been enough. I will have lived enough. I think it was Jim Carrey, of all people. I heard him on a podcast, and he said, I've done enough. I have enough. I am enough. And so it's the duality of that. And we always want to be striving. Like, I'm still going. I'm not done. I'm going to keep growing and expanding and learning new things, and it's enough. Holding both of those without fully aligning on either side, I think, is the challenge of life. That's really the balance, if there is one. It's not work-life balance. It's the balance of my potential is limitless and I could have 20 million versions of my life, and I'm enough right now. That's why philosophers exist, I think, because it's tough.
Ooh, that is a really deep and compelling response, and one that I really want to go a little deeper on. But what it does for me is it ties into kind of almost those inner voices that we hear. And because on one side, when we like to think that, to your point, that I'm enough, right? I've done enough, I've experienced enough, I've lived enough, I'm enough. But on the flip side of that coin, I'm striving, right? I'm trying to be a better version of who I was yesterday. I'm interested in doing something new and challenging myself. Yet that duality it's competing up here, right? It's competing up here in my mind. So learning to know myself better, to understand that self-talk and how to, I don't know if tame is the right word, but whatever it is, to be able to have the right kinds of conversations. So I'm living in alignment, but I'm also not comfortable, but I'm also okay with both the being good enough and the striving.
I
So
love that.
walk, so please walk, and I'm exploring this with you live time. Right. So some of what we're talking about right now, I had not planned on necessarily even addressing, but that's what I love about these conversations. They're organic, and depending on what you say, I want to follow a certain line. So help me and all of those who are watching and listening right now understand from your perspective, because you bring so much experience. How do you manage those multiple personalities, those multiple aspects that of yourself, that have different, sometimes competing needs and wants and desires, and also the fact that, I'm good enough right now.
It's such a conundrum, and that's why I really love parts work, because it takes this abstract, very philosophical idea of enoughness and striving and contentment and purpose, all of the things. Parts work makes room for all of it. And your question, how do we manage all of the personalities, right? The part of me that knows I'm enough, and the part of me that wants to take a class on everything and learn all the new things and write 10 more books. How do we manage it all? The part of me that gets really anxious before I do something new, and the part of me that loves trying new things. Parts work is the solve for that. And the thing with the business world is the business world has already cracked the code on how to manage all of this multiplicity. It's the same strategy with your self-talk that you use with your team if you're a manager. It's knowing how to bring competing agendas and competing perspectives to the table and negotiate, not based on position, but based on interests. Any high-level negotiation, and I looked into the Harvard negotiation project, like, what's the gist here? What's the bottom line? The bottom line is competing people will have to find some sort of mutual interests, or you're never going to get to a solution. And it's true with the parts of ourselves. The part of me that wants to grind really hard, and the part of me that wants to rest, the part of me that wants to sit on my couch and do nothing but eat DoorDash and binge watch a show, and the parts of me that want to work out. We have to have a negotiator, someone skilled to manage or to lead all of these voices. And that's the idea of self-leadership, which is those tools already exist in the business world. I've simply taken them and put them into how we talk to ourselves, about ourselves, with ourselves.
Okay, so before we go any further, why don't we do this? Let's make this a level 100 brief course for a moment, because there are some people who are going to be listening to what you just shared, and they're going to be thinking to themselves, well, this seems awfully woo-woo. What is this, right? What is this parts work? What are we talking about? Multiple personalities, talking to ourselves, all these kinds of things, negotiating with ourselves. Let's start very basic. What is parts work? Mm-hmm. What is IFS? So give us the bare bones definition of that. When did it come into practice, and how is it being used today? Let's start there.
Okay. And it's great because it's not woo. It sounds so mystical, but the reality is everyone thinks thoughts and everyone says stuff to themselves. If you've ever thought to yourself, oh God, like, why did I do that? Why did I say that? You're talking to yourself. Like, who's talking and who's listening when you're arguing with yourself? I know I should get off the couch, but I don't want to. You do that. And it's in the language. The number one question that I get asked as a therapist, and it's the same question from everyone. Why does part of me know what to do? Drink the water, phone a friend, find a hobby. We know what to do. Part of me knows, and other parts of me are doing the opposite. It's baked into our language. Parts work is simply taking this thing that we all do every day anyway and creating a framework and tools and structure and language around it so we know what we're talking about. Parts work, most simply defined, is the idea that your mind, just like your body, is made of lots of different parts, all of which do a different job. There's the part of me that knows I need to focus and write 65,000 words. And there's parts of me that like to go and play and turn off my computer and be around oceans and trees. Parts work is simply a framework for how to manage your own minds so you're not constantly at war with yourself. So that's all parts work is. And if you've seen the movie Inside Out, that's sort of close to this idea that your mind is not this single evil thing that's out to sabotage your goals and make you feel anxious all the time. Your mind is a system. It's like a company. And like any company, you have different teams, all of whom have different roles and are all competing for a finite supply of resources. Our internal resources are our time and our energy. And so it's just like a company. Just think of your mind like a company. Parts work is HR taken inside. So that's what it is.
Okay. And then tie that to internal family systems because it's part of. So how does all of that come together?
Yeah. So parts work is just the idea that your mind has lots of teams and all the teams are doing stuff. Internal family systems, or IFS, is a model created by Dr. Richard Schwartz, and it's a framework that shows you how to work with these different teams. I was trained in internal family systems. That's how I came to parts work. There's lots of different types of therapies and approaches that utilize the idea. IFS is my personal favorite. And I wrote the book to sort of riff on it. I really love IFS and it's my favorite modality, but I also like taking things, simplifying them, taking them out of the therapy room, especially because I keynote and I like bringing therapy things into generally corporate America where we're not talking feelings and emotions and childhood. We're talking, here's how you manage the parts of you that want to speak up in a meeting and the parts of you that are telling you shut up. Or maybe the parts of you that speak up too much in meetings and should shut up. And so my work is my take on IFS. It's not IFS exactly. It's heavily inspired by.
Okay, very good. So with that said, in the work that you've done, have there been any examples of where parts work, IFS, was not a good therapeutic fit for a situation, or is it one of those that really can be used in any situation where therapy is a good step forward?
So, and that's a great question because I do think should be in the toolbox for life, not just for therapy. Knowing how to talk to yourself and how to navigate your own mind is a life skill that if you have a brain, you should probably know how to do. But it's not the first line intervention. If my office caught on fire right now, I'm not going to sit here and be like, well, which part of myself is thinking or feeling a certain way? Sometimes the tool for the job is action, not insight. And I think it's really important, especially now as we've sort of trended away from not talking about insight at all. We may have over-indexed a little bit on be authentic and bring your whole self to work and bring your feelings to work and share vulnerably. It's like, well, yeah, but we've overcorrected a little bit. Sometimes what is needed in a moment is action, not insight. And I'm a therapist saying that.
Very powerful, and I agree with you. And it's ironic that you bring that up right now because, and you will hear me say this during our conversation today, and I will reference this when I'm talking about your book, your latest book, which by the way is outstanding, and I'm continuing to read and reference it. But it's one thing to consume, it's one thing to learn. It's great to read papers, to read research, to read your books, Britt, go to the library, do all those things. But remember that no change equals no change. So until you take action on the information that you're consuming, nothing is really going to change for you. So action, insight's important, but applying and attaching action to that is where things really begin to get exciting. So I'm glad you shared that with us. So I want to talk about the multiple personalities part. So you've touched on this, obviously. I mean, we all have different aspects to our mind, but give some clarity on that in terms of, do you name the various personalities or aspects of your mind?
It's a great question. So I think it's very similar to our physical bodies. If you gave me a map of human anatomy and said you now need to label every cell, organ, tissue, and system, I'd fail that test. I don't know every single system, cell, organ, bone. I don't know what they're all called. I know I have a labrum in my shoulder because I tore it. And so I didn't even know I had a labrum in my shoulder until it was injured. And now I need to know what a labrum is because I need to treat it in order to heal it. I think our minds are the same. If something's working, you don't really need to sit there and analyze it. It's just working. I don't think a whole lot about my left knee unless I bang it into something. And so the parts of our minds that I think we do need to focus on are the ones that tend to cause us trouble or stuckness. The inner critic is a big one that I see being a part of your mind that is going to cause you to not do things you want to do or to hold yourself back or stay small. So the inner critic is one. And then with habits, I call them the impulsive parts. I do think the critical parts and the impulsive parts are the two top categories of parts that most people would do well having some more fluency in speaking their language. But you don't need to know every single part of yourself. That sounds exhausting and cumbersome.
Okay, fair enough. And I'm right there with you because I really wouldn't want to learn all the parts anyway, even if I could. Okay, so let's then hone in a bit on the inner critic. this one is, to me, it is such a relatable component and something that I've never run across anyone who, doesn't criticize themselves. I have lots of conversations along these lines. Maybe there is someone out there who just never has those kinds of conversations. But for those of us who have those conversations where we're beating ourselves up, I'm not good enough, I'm not this, I'm not ready for this, I can't do this, all of those conversations. Let's talk specifically about some things that we can all do to acknowledge it, recognize it, make sure that we have the self-awareness, but then what are some tools or strategies that we can begin to employ to help us work through that?
Yeah. And the thing with inner critical voices, like the ones you just named, the three top mistakes that we make is we either listen to it, we ignore it, or we try to fight it. And, like we either listen to it, meaning we believe it's true. You suck. Don't do the thing. I'm either going to, the mistakes that I make, I'm either going to believe, well, I thought that. Therefore, if I thought it, it must be true. That's like saying I saw it on the internet, so it must be true. Like, no. Or we're going to fight it. No, I don't suck. Yes, you do. No, I don't. Well, if you're fighting with yourself, you're going to lose no matter how the outcome goes, or pretending like it's not there. Those are the three main strategies that people tend to employ, and bad habits form when you try those strategies. Because if you ignore it, you're going to need alcohol or workaholism or some kind of repetitive behavior to stay numb. If you fight it, you're going to have a lot of stress hormones going through your body, and you'll probably have high blood pressure or something. And if you believe it's true, you'll likely come to me with depression. And so what if there was a fourth option? And the fourth option is, what if it wasn't all the way true, but what if it had a point? And I like to say to my critical voice, first of all, you're not your thoughts. So parts work starts with the assumption just because you have a thought doesn't mean that that is in fact the truth. Just means if I hear a voice saying, hey, you suck, I might say, thank you, part, for bringing this to my attention. I'll take that under advisement. And you know what? It might have a point. When I first started writing books, I didn't know how to write books. So my critical voice that said, you suck, who are you to write a book? It had a point. It was like, you know what? I should probably get a writing coach, and I should probably do some research on how books are structured and how books are sold and distributed. So our inner critic, like any cranky employee, likely has a little bit of merit to their argument. So we want to get the nugget of what's true and what's useful in that. We don't want to fight it. It's just like we want to manage it. We want to lead it. A good CEO is not going to get steamrolled by the critical feedback of every employee. A good leader will listen to it, look for patterns, and go, all right, what do I want to do with this information? And we want to treat our inner critic in the same way. We treat the inner critic like it's the leader of the show, and it's not. It's a valued employee with some interesting things it has to offer, but it's not endgame.
Okay, so let me back up for just one second. That inner critic, first of all, why do we know why we have that? I mean, is it a protection? Why is that happening in our minds?
And I'll answer that question because I like the question, but you actually don't
Okay.
need to know where it came from. You don't need to know where in childhood did I learn to tell myself you're stupid when you make silly little mistakes. But generally speaking, our brains are little sponges. And as kids, we pick up cultural norms, we pick up language norms, and we learn to speak to ourselves based on what we learn from the adults around us. If growing up, I saw my father yell at himself every time he did something wrong, I will learn making mistakes is bad. I should yell at myself when I do it. So the inner critic is often a brain adaptation, but even if you don't know where you picked it up, it doesn't matter. You can still learn to manage it. And again, like you said, treat it like it's trying to help. Let's just assume it's a really unskilled, untrained, cranky person that works for you that doesn't know that you are in charge of the whole thing. It's trying to help. It's just not doing the best job all the time.
Okay, so when we question that thought, and so if it comes to me, if I have one of those thoughts like, Jay, you can't write a book, or you can't attract that particular coaching client, and I acknowledge it, thank you, right, and I'm questioning it. what is actually happening? Can you maybe distill that a little bit and simplify what then is happening next?
Yeah, and this is where it gets out of the woo-woo realm and it gets really, really practical. When
Okay.
you start talking to your inner critic voice like this, when you start talking to yourself like this, you are in fact slowing the cascade of stress hormones that comes when we're spinning in our thoughts or we're thinking, oh no, it's me, it's all me, I am anxious, I am angry, I am overwhelmed, versus part of me is feeling this way. Science has shown that when we observe our thoughts without becoming overwhelmed by them, our brain stays in the front. Like the executive functioning center of the brain stays lit up when you talk to yourself this way. Parts work is going to slow your roll so you can be sharper, more effective, make better decisions faster without getting hung up on back brain reactivity. There's very practical consequences of doing this very awkward, uncomfortable work.
Interesting. Okay, so then talk about when someone is feeling if there's depression, like you mentioned, if you're not able to deal with these things, right, you're going to come see me. Right now, we're dealing with depression. So someone who is depressed, or let's talk about anxiety and depression because two different things. But parts work can also help with those issues as well.
Parts work, I have found as a recovering human and just as a clinician and a person,
Hmm.
even if you don't have a mental health challenge, parts work helps with the most severe mental health challenges to the most basic life tasks that are annoying. So I don't feel like writing the email to I'm depressed and I can't get out of bed. I'm not comparing the two. I am saying parts work is a framework that does work with all of that stuff. It doesn't work if you have a medical issue. If you have schizophrenia, parts work might be helpful, but you need medication. And so there are, of course, certain things that parts work is not sufficient to solve the problem, but I've never seen a situation where it's not a useful way to think about any situation. And again, you don't always need the insight. My favorite tool, and this goes back to what we were saying, is called a micro yes. Like you were saying, like if there's a part of you that says, Jay, you can't write a book, you'll never attract that client. We're not going to spend a whole lot of time analyzing where that came from and why it's there. We're going to go, all right, thank you, part of Jay that said that. One, how true is it? Do we need to get more skills? Do we need to level up our knowledge base? Two, thank you for your input. A micro yes is now the action that we take based off this information. A micro yes is not a small step. It is not a baby step. It is the smallest step you can think of cut into 10 more pieces. And here's why it works. When you do a micro yes, you're doing something so small that your brain won't fight you. It's not going to shut you down. You're not going to freak out. A micro yes for a fitness goal is not take a walk after work because you're not doing it. It's too big. A micro yes for a fitness goal is literally wherever you are right now, take off your left sneaker and throw it by the door. That's it. The only thing you need to do to break a pattern is to do anything that's not the pattern. A micro yes doesn't look like much, but those compound and they add up and that builds momentum. Momentum will get you where you want to go a lot further and a lot faster than waiting for motivation or waiting for readiness. You don't need readiness. You need a micro yes. Go do it. Now do another one. Watch how fast your life changes.
Wow. Okay, so give us an example, and I want to go right to your personal life. Give us an example of where the most recent time that your inner critic spoke to you, and what was a micro yes that you put into practice? So the inner critic, what was it specifically, and then what was the micro yes?
I'm trying to decide. My multiple personalities are going, how vulnerable are we willing to get with Jay? Well, we like
Please
Jay.
get vulnerable.
Should we give a standard stock answer or should we say what's a real thing? So I'm going to give you the real thing. I just wanted to walk you
Thank
through. That's what just happened. I heard little voices in my head saying, say the thing, don't say the thing. But I know my parts and I know what that is. So I don't feel crazy. So I'll give you a financial thing. So
Okay.
like many people who front facing look like they have it all together, I am still new to the world of investing and retirement accounts and how all of that works. And I have a lot of resistance to understanding how all of that works. And I'm shocked how many very successful looking people have no idea about any of that stuff either. I'll say it because I know I'm not the only one. And so I really didn't want to dive into like my portfolio and where all the things are and what they are, because snooze. But I do know I probably should know that stuff. So my micro yes was I emailed my financial planner and I was like, all right, I've been ignoring the things, like the notices come from my accounts and I just ignore them and shred them. I'm like, let's get a meeting on the calendar for September so we can talk about all this finance stuff so I can get a little bit more fluent in where all that stuff is and what it's doing and what I need to know. The micro yes wasn't open the envelope and look at all the account statements. The micro yes was set the meeting.
Perfect. Thank you for exposing that with all of us. I appreciate it. I know that can be yucky, but at the same time, I think, and I have found this, I don't know if this helps you, but just talking about things like this at times can be cathartic in and of itself, right? Just being able to share something that's, that's on my heart or in my mind, because it helps me acknowledge the fact that I've done the thing, and it reinforces in my own mind, this might be a bit crazy, but in my own mind, it just reinforces that, yeah, you did take that step, right? You can move that process forward. You can overcome that thing. You can move past that obstacle that you've been snowballing in your mind for so long. So thank you. I appreciate it.
I'll have a vulnerability hangover about that tomorrow, which again, with parts work, a part of me, even now I can hear it being like, oh my God, you just disclosed on a business podcast that you are really not super fluent in investing. And it's like, you're never going to get asked to give a speech again. And another part is saying, but your job isn't to be a financial planner. Your job is to do other things. And both voices are arguing. I am not going to go, what's wrong with me? Why did I say that? I'm going to go, I know not everyone is happy with the decision, but as the CEO of the inner boardroom, my decision was to disclose, and I stand by my decision. And that's self-leadership.
Beautifully said. And for everyone that's watching and listening right now, live time, right? You're hearing those thoughts that are going back and forth. This is a great example of what goes on in our own minds, but then what you can actually do about it. So to me, as I'm listening to you, it really does reinforce the importance and the power of what we can actually do, right? The action steps that we can take. And it's so interesting when you think about it, as I walk down the street or if I'm going into a meeting as an example, and I'm thinking about that inner critic, I'm looking around the room sometimes, and it's kind of funny. I'm laughing to myself because I think as I look at every single person there, you do the same thing. You do the same thing, right? Without coming out and saying it. But if we could hear everyone's thoughts, we would hear all of this interesting conversation going on. And so much of it, unfortunately, is negative. And I think that ties to negativity bias, but we can work to manage that to the best of our ability. So let's go to the corporation for a moment. So let's say you are working with or giving a keynote to a company, and they are challenged with something in particular, and they'd really like your keynote to be focused maybe on collaboration amongst teams or self-leadership. How would you structure a talk or a keynote to be able to help them solve some of those bigger challenges? Like, how do we work together, right? How do we collaborate more effectively? How do we break down the silos that we have in so many companies so we can cross-contaminate and work more effectively together? What would you be thinking about as you're planning for a keynote of that nature?
So, and of course I customize depending on industry and company and what's relevant. But generally speaking, when we talk about collaboration, innovation, change management, we all are sort of saying the same stuff with one big piece missing. And that is, Human brains have not changed since we were cave people. And so people don't fear change. Brains are not hardwired to look at change as something good, even if the change is objectively positive. So if you don't know how your brain works, just the basics, you don't need a neuroscience degree or 20 years in psychoanalysis. But if you don't know that you're not going to be able to sell a new initiative to a group of people if you don't know what change does to the human brain and which centers it lights up. So in my keynotes, I do a very basic, and it's really entertaining. I make it fun. Like, here's what the human brain does when it's in a meeting. Here's what a human brain does when it's told things are changing. And here's what you do about it. It's sort of like I'm a mind mechanic. And so think of the problem more as a problem of mechanics and not a problem with your people inherently. Like confidence and competence and collaboration, beyond being mindsets, they're physiological states. A brain and a nervous system that's not in DEFCON 5 mode is going to be naturally collaborative. Like, you don't have to train people to work with each other. It's our natural default setting. But most of us operate in fifth gear, and we don't know you're not going to be able to problem solve or innovate from fifth gear. And what happens is most people, if you ever drive a stick, you can't go from 90 in fifth to 20 in first. You cannot shift that way without doing real damage. But companies that have been going at 90 miles an hour in fifth gear suddenly are asking their people for first gear brain stuff. And you can't do that without shifting down. My keynotes are the solve for here's how you shift down when you're in fifth. Here's how you shift up if you're stuck in first.
Love it. Love it. That is so good. And I've actually seen you in action before speaking. Unfortunately, I haven't had that experience in person, but I've seen you speak before, and your delivery right now, your energy, your personality, all of that shines through, which speaks to what I had mentioned to you at the beginning of the podcast, that you do such a great job of connecting sometimes very difficult, well, what I would think is difficult information to really get your head wrapped around, but you do it in a way that allows you to understand it and make it actionable. And that to me is one of the most important things, because if we're not taking action, we're not actually changing and moving ourselves forward. So I want to talk about questions for a moment, because in our conversation, we are asking questions, we're answering questions, and we're delving more deeply into that. Today, what are one or two bigger questions that you're asking yourself? It could be about life, could be about your practice, bigger, meatier questions, those kinds that can sometimes keep you up at night that you're really contemplating on. Just one or two big questions.
Oh, Jay, my gosh, you're killing me with these. Oh, I don't know if I can do vulnerability again in one podcast. I can, and I will. But a big question. So, as I've been writing the books and doing more keynote speaking, which I love doing because you get more people, 1 hour, one person, hour by hour. I love, and I've built my whole career on being a psychotherapist, but my work is really shifting. And my identity for my whole professional career has been, I'm a psychotherapist, and shifting out of that private practice zone into more public facing, professional speaking, author speaker stuff is like, well, what needs to change in my lifestyle? What needs to change in my business? I need to close my books to new patients. And that is also I cannot see people at the volume that I am used to seeing people if I'm shifting my business model away from primarily being a therapist to primarily doing other things. And that's a very jarring change to ask my system to make, because it's different. And I'm so comfortable in the therapy zone. I don't need to prep for a session, put anybody in my office from any issue in any place in life, and I'm going to be able to do really good work in that hour. Doing these new things is learning new industries, learning the specifics of the pain points of different industries is just a different flavored thing than my normal day-to-day therapy thing. So I've gotten to have the privilege of restructuring my entire business model based on what I'm now doing. And that's very uncomfortable.
I am sure it is. Now, I really appreciate how you change the language that you're using, the words that you're using. So instead of have to, get to, as an example. So I've heard you a couple of times during our conversation here today where you've almost self-corrected in the moment. And that language that we use both to ourselves as well as the language that we use when we're speaking with somebody else is so critically important. And I've really worked hard to become much more self-aware of the language that I use to myself. So as I'm having that self-talk, whether it's critical or not, I am hyper aware of the words that I'm using. And I'm intentional about changing those words sometimes because it affects the meaning, but it also affects how I feel and what I'm going to do next. Do you
It's
find that?
It's so true. And again, it's not just semantics. It's really powerful. And you have a shift in your physiology. A big one is changing the word should to the word could. I should go to the gym. I could go to the gym. I should really close my books to new patients. I could close my books. Could is agency and power and choice. Should is constriction and shame and smallness. That tiny shift from should to could changes your entire orientation to how problems are framed. Language matters. Your brain is listening to everything you say to yourself and other people. So making a practice of being aware of when you're shoulding on yourself, as they say, and change the should to could. And for me, have to is almost always not have to. It's I could do this. I'm choosing to do this. Have to is if you legitimately have no other choices. I don't have to expand my business model. I don't have to level up my life. I could and I want to. I get to.
Yeah, that is so good. So as you are changing your business model, and I know that can be uncomfortable, but as you're doing that, are you changing at all the people that you are surrounding yourself with? And I'm not talking about changing your clients, right? Your patients, excuse me, but I'm talking about changing the people that you tend to spend time with. As your identity shifts and as your business evolves, are you changing the people that you're around?
It's tricky because even when people have really good friends, often friends and family will respond to a changed version of you with a fear response, right? They're scared that you're going to leave them or they're going to lose you. And so sometimes family and friends, I'm not saying get rid of them. I am saying sometimes they're not the best people to surround yourself with when you're iterating into a new version of yourself. So you want to be around people that know the things that you want to know. You want to be around people that are doing the things you want to do. Those are uncomfortable rooms to be in sometimes because those little voices are saying like, what are you doing here? You know, who do you think you are to do this? But I really love surrounding myself with people who I admire and respect, who know more than me, who can really, who aren't threatened by anything I'm doing because they're doing their own thing. And so keep your family and friends, but make sure you have people that are invested in your forward motion, not in your stagnation. Not that family
Ooh,
and friends are
yes.
doing that, but because brains don't like change, even well-meaning family and friends sometimes, not always, but will sometimes unintentionally sort of steamroll or fire hose your ideas because they don't want you to get hurt. Oh my God, I'm thinking of writing a book. Well, Britt, that's really hard. And you know, there's like less than 1% of a chance that you're going to get a publishing deal. And so I just don't want you to get ahead of yourself. That's not helpful. It's not. I want people that are going to say, yeah, all right, let's figure out. If people have done it, it means it can be done. Who knows how to do this? And what do they have to teach me? Like we need that.
There you go. I love that. All right. I'm going to ask you another vulnerability question, and I hope that's okay with you. But while I've got you, and because of your background, your experience, and all the wisdom that you bring, I want to talk about hard conversations. So what is a hard conversation that you are avoiding to have?
A hard conversation that well, the one with my financial planner is going to be a hard one.
Okay. I get it. So let's put that one over here. So
Right.
what is another hard conversation that you're avoiding having?
Mm. I feel my parts resisting that question. They're like, no, we don't want to do any more vulnerable work. He's coaching us live, and this is awful. It's great. And then I have other parts going, this is so great. What awesome questions. It's so nice to be real and transparent and human. I'm avoiding this one.
Oh, Britt. Why are you avoiding it?
Mm, that's a great question. I don't love why questions
Okay.
because insight will get you deep, but not far. But I'll answer it because we are doing an insightful conversation. Why?
Okay.
I have parts that are like, we haven't pre-planned what that is. And if it's a hard conversation we're avoiding and we say it, are we accidentally outing it to a person who's going to listen to your podcast? And
Hmm.
is that going to then hasten the necessity of having the conversation before this airs?
Oh, good response. Okay, so I want to back up for just a second because you don't like why questions.
Hmm.
So if you were coaching me right now
Yes.
and I asked you that question, why do you not want to
Hmm.
answer it? What would be the better way to reframe that question?
I like that question. That would
Okay.
be how willing are you to play this game that we're playing right now? You know, like why am I resisting is information and it's interesting, but how willing am I to work through this? You know, how badly do you want to be able to get to the other side of this issue? What are your choices in this moment for navigating the stuckness that you're experiencing? I like what and how, or who in your life can help you with this particular block that you're experiencing. What, how, and
Oh,
who will get you into motion faster than why. So I like why because it's fun and I'm a therapist and I've spent my life analyzing why people do what they do and I'm an expert in it. But I found why will get you more wise. Wise beget more wise versus what, how, and who is going to get you forward.
okay, got it. So what, how, who? All right, I
Yeah.
like that. I will take that under consideration and start to use that moving forward. I know that's going to help me out and I appreciate it. Okay, so Britt, as we are wrapping up our conversation, and this has really been such a delight, and I always learn from you, and I so much appreciate you sharing with all of us. So I would ask that you give all of us, including me, a challenge. What is one thing that you would
Mm.
challenge us to do starting immediately?
I love that. And I will say before I answer that, you did say at
Okay.
the beginning of the podcast you wanted my other personalities to come out and play, and you just met my resistant part that will dig in her heels and cross her arms and hiss when she doesn't want to do something. So you have now met one of those parts. So my challenge to everyone listening is find your micro yes. You do not wait until you sober up or get the special gear or till next Monday. You micro yes right now. Micro yeses are not for tomorrow. They're for right now. What's your micro yes? Pick one. If you feel resistant, make it smaller. A micro yes should be something so easy you feel stupid doing it, and it feels easier to just do it than not do it. Like in the next 30 seconds, get a micro yes done. Nailed it. And then DM us and let us know what you chose to do.
Oh, that's a good one. All right, my friends. I hope the two words coming out of your lips right now are challenge accepted. So let's do it. All right, Britt, I've got one final question for you, and it is this. Would you share with all of us what one of the most valuable lessons is that you've learned from a patient of yours? One of the most valuable lessons you've learned.
Mm. There's so many. Like I really do feel like I learn as much, if not more, than what I give because I get to be around people. And the whole like, if you could hear what everyone was thinking, I do. That's my job. So I have spent thousands and thousands of hours hearing what everyone is thinking. I think one of the most valuable lessons is that we're all a little crazy. You know, the things that make us different, the things that divide us, like whatever, I get it. Life is complicated, the world is challenging, but when you see people up close behind closed doors, you realize we're all doing the best we can trying to figure it out. And people tend to come alive when asked the right question. And so I think the power of asking questions is the biggest lesson I've learned.
Beautifully said. Thank you for that. And Britt, I want to thank you so very much for joining me today on Business Minds Coffee Chat. What an insightful and brilliant conversation. I knew it was going to be a good one, and I just want to let you know how grateful I am for you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Absolutely. It is my pleasure. And for all of you, thank you so very much for watching and for listening. And I do have a quick favor. Would you please take just a moment to subscribe, rate, and leave us a review on Apple Podcast or Spotify? We would love it if you would do that and share one of your key takeaways from this conversation with Britt, and I'll make sure to pass that on to her and to listen to more podcasts. All you need to do is visit jscherbusinessconsulting.com, click that podcast button, and my friends, until next time, keep learning, keep growing. Make sure you pick up a copy of Britt's new book, Align Your Mind, read it, and apply the lessons you learn, and we'll see you on the next Business Minds Coffee Chat. Take care, everybody.